This webinar is a continuation of one of the highest rated sessions at the inaugural Restaurant Revenue Growth Conference that took place just a couple of months ago in May. We are thrilled to provide more resources and extended learning opportunities from the conference over the coming months, so please stay tuned. Before we get started, I'd like to cover a few logistics for the webinar. We will conduct a couple of polls throughout the presentation, so be ready to respond with the click of your mouse. We will also take questions at the end of the presentation. You may type your questions at any time using the questions window in your GoToWebinar screen. We will do our best to answer as many questions as possible before we conclude. If your question is not addressed, we will follow up via email. My colleague, Mark Lapidus, will help facilitate questions at the end. We will also be sending a brief evaluation after the webinar. We ask you to take just a few minutes to provide your feedback and suggestions on topics that you'd like us to consider as we develop future programs. In addition, a white paper that is co-authored by our webinar speaker, Monica Ho, titled 6 Local Social Media Engagement Strategies for Multi-Location Brands, will be distributed along with a PDF of the presentation slides by early next week. And I'd like to thank our Restaurant Revenue Growth Conference sponsors for their ongoing support. They are all incredible National Restaurant Association partners and strong advocates for these extended learning opportunities as part of our conference program. I'd also like to thank Sochi for sponsoring this webinar. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce our speaker, Monica Ho, Chief Marketing Officer at Sochi, which is the leading social media marketing and reputation management platform for multi-location businesses. Monica is one of the country's top mobile marketing experts and was named one of Business Insider's most powerful women in mobile marketing. She brings 20 years of experience working with brands like Walmart, Dunkin' Donuts, and Taco Bell on strategic marketing and branding initiatives. She has presented at top conferences, including the National Restaurant Association's Restaurant Revenue Growth Conference, Mobile Marketing Association's CMO Summit, and the Coca-Cola Data Summit. She is a former member of the Executive Board of the Mobile Marketing Association and former Chief Marketing Officer of XAD, the leading global technology platform driving in-store visits and sales by leveraging location as the primary source of intent. Please join me in welcoming Monica.
Thank you so much, Stacy, and thank you for all of you that have given up an hour of your time, hopefully less, to be here today for this webinar. So before we get started, what I thought I would do is start with a little bit of research. And for those of you that may have seen this session at the Revenue Growth Conference, I've got a special treat. So although I am going to be covering some of the topics we did cover at the Growth Conference, I have some really great new research to cover today by our friends at the Local Search Association, who just completed their local media tracking study. And so we'll be covering a lot of new research today, which should hopefully be pretty interesting for all of you on the phones today. So again, before we get started, we're talking about mobile today and the importance of building your brand, knowing that a lot of these consumers, especially consumers looking for a restaurant to visit, are using these devices. Nowadays, consumers are more mobile-centric than ever. The mobile device has obviously become the first screen and the dominant screen, as you can see here by the chart, where mobile devices has actually eclipsed the amount of time people are spending per day, even increased over the amount of time we spend with TV. And when it comes to a restaurant decision in particular, mobile consumers are even more mobile dependent than the general searcher. So the research that you're looking at here is some of the newer research from the Local Search Association from their 2018 local media tracking study. And what you're seeing on the chart to the right is the devices used to access the internet when consumers are looking to make certain purchase decisions. So the turquoise, so the light blue color, are restaurant searches compared to general searches in the dark blue. And you can see, obviously, smartphone and laptop usage over indexes when somebody's looking for a restaurant. And then in terms of the sources that they turn to, you can see to the left, good usage both on search engines and ratings and review sites, as well as to top social properties. And we're going to be covering a lot of these different properties in today's session. So when it comes to actually making a purchase decision, we see that restaurant searchers have a really tight path to purchase, with 71% of those searches actually resulting in a contact visit or purchase made directly following the search. So that's important to understand. Again, these consumers are working at the speed of mobile, which means they're looking to access and make decisions on demand, which is important to understand. However, even though these decision makings this decision making process is happening pretty quickly, there's still a ton of opportunity for a restaurant to influence that purchase decision. So when you look at the type of information that consumers are looking at when, again, looking for a restaurant, almost over 60% of these consumers, or 6 out of 10, don't actually have a business name or restaurant name in mind when conducting that mobile search. So again, they're looking at that information. There's still a ton of influence that can happen when that search is being conducted. In fact, almost 9 businesses are considered if that consumer is starting their search on a search engine. So let's say they inputted a search query, restaurant near me. Even though a lot of those businesses are coming up, they're still going to look at up to 9 businesses before making that ultimate decision. And when looking at information like ratings and reviews, again, those consumers are still considering multiple businesses, a little bit over 3 businesses when looking at ratings and review information. So again, even though that information is happening very quickly, the importance of being visible, being searchable is quite important to a mobile brand and business in this day and age. So another piece of research I wanted to bring to your attention, we covered the top sites that a mobile searcher would be looking at when they had a restaurant need. And the top was search engines at 74%, followed by ratings and reviews at 34%. And I think that's interesting to understand that, it looks like more than 3/4 of that usage is going to search engines and only 1/3 going to ratings and review sites. However, then you look at data like this, which is 93% of consumers say that online reviews have an impact on their purchase decision. So that's really interesting. And I think the important thing to understand here, and we'll get into some visuals in a second, I think a lot of times consumers might be thinking they're just looking at search results, when in fact what they're actually looking at is a culmination of a lot of different information depending on the source they're turning to. So there's been a blurring of lines that has occurred in the past couple of years where your typical search results aren't just search results. They're search results with ratings and reviews and other information. Your typical ratings and review site is not just a ratings and review site anymore. They've really enhanced their listings, and so they offer a number of different sources of information as well. And then the same on the search engine. So again, it's important to understand, regardless of the source that consumer is turning to, all of those sources today have ratings and reviews information, which is why this number is so high. And in terms of consumer expectations when looking at ratings and reviews information, based on the latest research, we see that consumers typically expect to see about 4 stars, 4 out of 5 stars on an average rating to even consider the business. So again, just really stresses the importance of having a good brand reputation on mobile and in digital to really influence and impact these purchase decisions as they're happening on demand. So ratings and reviews, as we had mentioned through all the research, can really make or break your restaurant marketing strategy in today's mobile world. And to further emphasize that, it's important to understand not only are consumers looking for this information as a source to understand who they're going to consider when they have a need, but what is the determining factor on what location they're ultimately going to visit. And what we're finding is that ratings and reviews is actually now trumping location when that final decision is being made. And I think that, again, it's important to understand that even though, I'm on my mobile device, I have a need, I'm looking to fulfill that need right now, I may consider a different restaurant that's further away from me if your ratings and reviews information deters me away. And so again, just further emphasizes why you really need to be looking at that information, and it's very important to your overall marketing and mobile strategy. In terms of search in general and being visible and searchable on mobile devices, I wanted to cover a few other trends outside of the importance of that ratings and review. So I think it's pretty known that a lot of search today is happening via the mobile device. And just a couple of years ago, a lot of the type of searches that were being conducted for needs such as, being hungry and needing to find a place to eat or a restaurant, a lot of those searches were being conducted with geomodifiers. So I would say, instead of, just restaurants, I would say restaurants and maybe input my zip code or restaurants and a city. And what we found is that over the past couple of years, if you look at this chart to the right, we're actually seeing general restaurant queries continue to increase, which is great, but the actual restaurant queries with geomodifiers are starting to decline. And that's really interesting. You're probably wondering, well, what's happening there? Well, what's happening there is that the technology is getting a lot more sophisticated. Not only our mobile devices, but the platforms that consumers turn to when they're looking for this type of information. So what you're seeing in this next chart to the left is the trend in Google search for near me now searches. And I know we've covered this topic in the past, but near me searches have grown 10 times where they were in just 3 years ago. And even just today, if you look at where we spiked in October 29th, 2017, and you go past that date into 18, you're starting to see those near me searches kind of flatten out. And again, it's an interesting trend, and you kind of question, why is that happening? Well, in the latest trend data that's come out from Google, what we're finding is happening here is that there's been another change in the way that consumers are starting to search. They're becoming a lot more sophisticated, and their search queries are becoming more sophisticated. And the more popular search query is now not near me, but where can I buy ... near me. So for instance, where can I buy tacos near me? Where can I find tacos near me? Where can I find burgers near me? Something like that. And those searches are starting to take over this really high growth in the search query trend. In fact, the latest research that Google has put out has shown those very sophisticated search queries growing 500% in the last 2 years. So again, an important trend to understand when you're thinking about your search and your visibility within mobile. And then again, emphasizing that when a consumer is searching for you, they're doing a little bit more of a sophisticated search. When they're getting to the search results, they're going to see things like you're seeing right now on the screen, where if they're conducting a search on Google, for instance, and you'll see I just used a general search. Google is smart and knows that this person's using a mobile device, so they're naturally going to bring up local business results at the top of the search results. So again, although a consumer, this might look like just traditional search results, we know that a lot of this information is the Google My Business pages. It's important to note here that if you look at the magnifying glass to the left, that in looking at these search results, you can see how prominent Google is making the ratings and reviews information. And even when you look at a site like Facebook and conducting a similar local search, you're going to see very similar visuals here. And the reason why that is, again, is because one, they know that consumers are looking for probably restaurants near them, even though they're not putting in a geo or a qualification search term there. And they know that consumers are making decisions primarily based on ratings and review information and location, which is usually the prominent information you're going to see when that first search is conducted. Now, why are we talking so much about the the importance of your brand reputation on mobile today? Obviously, because of your visibility, as you can see here, and the fact that what we found in a lot of these different properties is that your actual ratings and reviews is actually becoming the #1 ranking factor in how they organize a lot of these listings. So even though you might be closest, sometimes if you've got another restaurant location that's also nearby, but they have a lot more ratings and reviews, a higher review than you have, you can find yourself being bumped down and that higher rated business come above you. So it's important to understand how that impacts your searchability and your visibility in terms of your mobile presence. Now, as a restaurateur, where should you focus when we talk about ratings and reviews? Where are consumers turning to? And what you're seeing here are the top 8 sites for restaurant reviews when you're looking at the total number of reviews that are on these properties. And by putting these in a list is not for you to look at this and say, okay, Google is where I need to focus because they're #1, or maybe I focus on the top 3. Unfortunately, for restaurant businesses, you really need to focus on all of these things. They're on a top listing for a reason, which means a lot of consumers turn to all of these different properties when they're looking for restaurant information, including ratings and reviews information. So you really need to make sure you're visible in all of these properties, you're aware of what's being posted there, and you're actively engaging. So if you're a single location business, looking at all of these sites, it's probably still manageable to manage all of these sites independently. But if you are a brand with a lot of locations, that does become difficult, and we'll talk about solutions for that a little bit later in the presentation. Before we move on from here, another really quick thing I wanted to point out here. Although this is a ranking of the top restaurant review sites, you'll notice pretty quickly on looking at just the top 3 properties is that we're talking about ratings and review sites, but on this list are search engines, are traditional ratings and review sites, and social properties. And so going back to what I said earlier in the presentation about the blurring of lines between these different properties, you're really seeing that here in the rankings of the top review sites that you need to be aware of. So in managing your brand reputation on mobile, it's really important that you understand the different properties and how they're using your brand and ratings and review information to provide information to consumers that are looking for information to make a quick decision. Ideally, I would love to spend time today going through each one of these properties because they all are a little bit different and unique from each other. However, based on our timing today, we're going to be able to cover the top 2 sites. I think by covering both Google and Facebook, we'll tap into what a local search would look like on a search engine versus a top social property. And a lot of the strategies and tactics we'll be able to cover will apply across a lot of the top review sites. So you should be able to use these across your strategies. So starting with Google Mobile and what their search results look like, these are some really great examples. The thing to note about the Google search results, they automatically provide locations that are near you when you conduct a restaurant search. It's a combination of, if they're doing any paid ads, they would appear to the top of that listing. They look very much like the organic Google My Business listings, if you can see to the leftmost visual example. And then when you're looking at the actual organic listings, they prioritize both location and review information on the top level listing because, again, they know that sometimes consumers just want to see that top level of information, and just with this amount of information, consumers can make a decision and keep moving. For those that want to go inside and click on one of these listings, Google My Business pages are essentially mini mobile sites when you click into one of these. So if you see on the right, the Jersey Giant Pizza Google My Business page surfaces a lot of that information that consumer is going to need to make a decision to also, make a visit to that location if they so choose. And they can dive in a little bit deeper. They can see menu items, access more review information, and get more information about the business. All of that information is available without leaving the Google site or the Google My Business page, which is really interesting. So if you are a local restaurant brand, it's really important that you go out and you're aware of what your listings look like. You're claiming these local pages. Google allows you to claim and manage all of these listings. And it's also important to understand that even though you're on a Google My Business page, Google is actually bringing in a lot of other information into these pages through their knowledge panel. So as you can see, this is another business page. This is for Casa Colombia. When you first go to the page, Google is putting their review information at the top, but you scroll just a little further down the page and you see how they're pulling in reviews from other top review sites. And again, that's important because although this consumer might not have wanted to go to Facebook, they're looking at information. They see that Facebook reviews are also available for this business. And just with the click of that Facebook link, they're going right into the Facebook property and looking at those reviews. So in terms of important areas to focus on for your mobile presence and reputation, again, ensure you've got Google My Business pages for all of your different locations set up and claimed. It's very important that once you have those pages claimed and set up, that you're constantly going in and optimizing those pages. One important area, obviously, is making sure you're continuing to add to the number of reviews that are found on those pages. Again, whether that's coming from your Google My Business page or through some of the top third-party review sites. That's going to help your visibility as well as the ranking of your listing as consumers are searching near them. And in terms of the page itself, providing detailed information is very beneficial to you. Obviously, consumers are going into these pages, they're looking for menus and other items. In addition, as we had mentioned earlier on in the presentation, because consumers are getting a lot more sophisticated in their search, adding keywords of the type of food that your location or venue offers, really, really important. For the cases where you've got a sophisticated searcher, they're looking for something specific, and instead of typing in restaurants or restaurants near me, they go as specific to say, a food item, where can I buy that near me? Your results will still come up. So we're going to go to a quick polling question, just to get a quick pulse on how you guys are looking at the market. So when you look at the percentage of consumers who have conducted a local business search via social in the past week, what do you think? What percentage of consumers do you think that would be? So again, we just covered local search via search engines. We know that that is a primary activity of a consumer that's looking for restaurants. But what about local search on social properties? Do you think that's 10%, 25%, 48%, or 76%? We're just going to give you guys a little bit of time to put your answers into the poll, and then we'll showcase those in just a second. Okay. Excellent. So hopefully you guys can, I think you might be seeing my little family here. You can see the results. The percentage of consumers who have conducted a local business search via social in the past week. The majority of you think it was 76% of consumers, of 44% of the audience. 34% of you thought it was 48%, and 21% of you thought it was 25%. So some really good participation here. The actual, if you look at this first stat, is 48% of consumers have conducted a local search via social property in the past week. And again, this is local or recent data from the Local Search Association's recent tracking study. I don't know about you guys, but I was pretty taken aback by how much search is happening today on the social properties, with almost 1 out of 2 consumers conducting local search via those pages. And because of all of that search activity, Facebook has become one of the number one, well, actually the number one social media platform in terms of influencing purchase decisions, with a lot of that search activity actually happening on Facebook. And it's important to understand when we're talking about social, there are some differences in the types of pages that we're talking about. So in Facebook, if you're a brand, you can actually have a national page that represents your brand and all of your locations. And then Facebook also has local business pages where each one of your locations can have a page dedicated to their local business. And what we're finding is that the majority of this activity is actually happening not on the national page, but on the local business page at 85% of engagement. So again, another important understanding to keep in mind when considering where are your consumers searching, where is that activity happening, and it's happening on those local pages. So if we go on to look at Facebook as the number 2 top review site, as you can see here through the visuals, a lot of the local search results on Facebook look very similar to the type of results that you would receive if you're looking for a local business on Google. Like Google, they're prioritizing location information and review information prominently on the top level listing, because they know, again, that is the primary information consumers need when making a purchase decision. And they want to make sure they're satisfying that need quickly if a consumer wants to make a decision at this level, or when they click into one of these listings, providing really easy access to that information at a level deeper. So another thing that is important to understand about Facebook, which is a little bit different from some other properties, is that let's say that you are a brand and you have your national restaurant page set up on Facebook, but you chose not to set up any local Facebook pages for your individual locations. What will happen if a consumer goes to Facebook and they're actually looking for a specific location of your brand? Facebook will actually serve up that location and will allow that consumer to leave comments, ratings, and reviews against that location. And if a page is not created, Facebook will actually create a page for that location. And it's just something important to understand, and Facebook does that, obviously, to make sure that that consumer experience is good, and they know that that consumer is looking to engage with that local business. On the brand side, that could be a little bit problematic, simply because if you have a lot of consumers that really want to engage with your local locations, and they're going out there, they're leaving comments or leaving ratings and reviews on these local pages, and you haven't claimed those pages, a lot of those comments and ratings and reviews are going unmanaged. And even though you've claimed your national page, you won't automatically be notified of any of these pages, one, being created, or two, those comments and reviews being left there. So again, as a brand that services local customers, it's always important, knowing that Facebook is a top ratings and review site and now becoming a major player in local search, to make sure you understand if you have local pages, that they're claimed and you are looking at that information like any other review or important search site. When it comes to the social sites, it's not just ratings and reviews information that you have to be aware of. Social is obviously a place that has been pretty big for creating connections as well as conversations. So although ratings and reviews are happening on social properties like Facebook, another big area where this type of activity is happening is in conversations. I don't know about you guys, but at least once a week I see somebody in my network either leaving a comment about a product or business that they've visited, sometimes good, sometimes bad, and it's become a pretty regular occurrence that I'm seeing this information. As you can see here, this particular person had visited a pizza place. They were not pleased. And then what ends up happening is, that person's network starts to comment and add their own information or experiences. So it's something that you just need to be aware of as a brand. Facebook actually changed their algorithm earlier this year, and what they've done is they've made conversations and posts that are receiving comments and shares. They're starting to prioritize that content over other content if they're seeing a lot of engagement. So when things like this happen, and whether it's a good or bad experience, it's good to be aware that this information spreads very quickly as consumers start to pile on. Because as soon as, you know, Nick leaves this comment, and let's say his friend Chris responds to that, if the network continues to engage with this post will be seen by not only Nick's network, but Chris's network and John's network. And pretty quickly, this type of information can reach a pretty large audience in a matter of hours. And so it's important to, again, be aware of where some of these conversations are happening, and just make sure that you're ready to be able to engage and respond when needed. And this is obviously not a phenomenon that is slowing down. We're seeing that almost 70% of consumers are now turning to social properties to seek resolution on customer care issues. It's actually the preferred method over more traditional tactics like calling a phone number. And this should be no surprise to a service industry like restaurants. And so again, really stresses the importance of needing to be on top of your brand and reputation, understanding the speed at which consumers are working on mobile, and being equipped to be prepared to again, engage and respond when these issues happen. So we've got one more quick polling question for you. And the question is, 47% of consumers expect their social media complaint to be responded to in what time frame? So I'll repeat that again. So half of consumers have a expectation that you as a business will get to them if they post a complaint or they post something that they feel needs to be attended to on social. Do you think that time frame is immediately after they sent that post? Within 1 hour after the post? Oops, apologies for that. The same day when that post was created? Within the week? Or longer than a week? So we'll give everyone a little bit of time to go ahead and answer this poll. And again, keep in mind that we're talking about the speed of mobile here. So these consumers are looking for everything on demand. I can tell you that's definitely my daughter. She gets pretty annoyed when things take too long, and too long for her is actually pretty quick for me. So I'll give you just a few more minutes to, okay, here we go. So of the audience, the majority of you think it's the same day, with almost half of the audience today thinking it's same day, about a quarter thinking in an hour, 15% immediately, and then some of you within the week. So this is a pretty good guess for the audience. The truth is, 47% of consumers expect a response within an hour of posting a complaint. That's pretty timely. And if they don't get that response, they actually start to become a little bit more upset about it. And we'll see a little bit in just a few minutes what can happen when a disgruntled customer feels like they should have been attended to, and they don't feel like they've been attended to in a timely manner. In fact, 84% of consumers expect a response no more than 24 hours after they've made a post. So again, just really kind of emphasizes the need to be aware of where your consumers are potentially turning to when they have a comment or want to leave a rating and review, and having some way to be notified when those things are happening. Because if your consumers' expectations are, half of your consumers are expecting within the hour, and then the other half within 24 hours, you really need to make sure that you can activate whether it's your team or your local business to respond, to make sure you're taking care of your customers and you don't turn a mountain out of a molehill in terms of some of these experiences. Okay, so what are the most important areas to focus on in social? Knowing that this is becoming a prominent place for not only local search around businesses, but also for leaving ratings and reviews in the traditional sense as well as in comments. Ensure, as I mentioned before, you have your local businesses set up and claimed if you have multiple locations. In the past, I know, some businesses tried to manage, by saying we're only going to have a national page, don't create local pages, and they prohibited their locations from having them. We would actually recommend you allow that to happen. If on Facebook you don't automatically create your pages and claim them, like I had mentioned, if a consumer wants to engage with a local business page, one will be created for you. So it's important that you're claiming them, and if not, you're going out and you're doing regular searches to make sure that you're aware of any unclaimed pages, you're claiming them, which allows you to be notified and start to manage comments on that page. For those of you that might be single location, again, I think a lot of these things can be managed in-house. However, knowing the amount of properties that these consumers are turning to, as we saw with the top 8 ratings and review sites, that can quickly become a little overwhelming, not just for the person managing one location, but imagine a brand managing tens, hundreds, thousands of pages. The good news is there's a lot of great technology platforms out there that can allow you to centralize a lot of these ratings and review sites into one platform. So one, you're notified of all of the comments and ratings happening, and then you can respond within these solutions as well. And again, around that is not only being aware that it's happening, but being enabled to timely respond and manage those ratings and reviews or comments as they're occurring based on those consumer expectations. Highly important and essential when managing your brand reputation online. So I said we would go over a little bit of a case study on what happens if you have a disgruntled customer and they leave it, what they think is, a post, they're disgruntled, they're hoping to get their issue resolved, and so they turn to a popular social site or a popular ratings and review site to post their experience. What happens if they go over an hour or over a day without that issue being properly addressed? And that's what we're going to cover in this next couple of pages. So what we're covering right now is an actual real-life example. This is a case study around a Me and Ed's location. And what happened here was a recent Me and Ed's visitor had visited one of their locations. This person was a social media influencer, which means they have they've built out their network on social, so they reach a lot of different people. And they had a negative experience, and they went on to a popular review site to leave a complaint about what they experienced. And instead of being acknowledged and a response being carefully crafted around the complaint, the complaint was actually challenged. And what ended up happening with that influencer very promptly shared a graphic retelling of their experience across Facebook, Twitter, and a number of other social platforms. And in just 1 month, this particular location, which was a top performing location across all of the different Me and Ed's locations, of which there's about 43 corporate owned and some franchise locations, they actually went down to one of the lowest performing locations after this issue had taken place via social. And in just 1 month, lost over $120,000 in revenue. And for a local business, this is very, very impactful. As a result of that experience, Me and Ed's actually went and found a technology platform. In this case, they decided to use Sochi, which is great. But what's interesting about platforms like Sochi, and of course Sochi is not the only one, as I mentioned before, what Me and Ed's really needed, it wasn't that they really didn't want to not get to that consumer and handle that consumer appropriately. Obviously, every business wants to do that. Unfortunately, sometimes, again, being timely about the response is not handled effectively. Sometimes the person that should be handling that response actually isn't the person that did, right? So there's a lot of complexities when it comes to actually handling these reviews right. And by leveraging a technology platform, a lot of times makes that process a lot more efficient and easy on the part of not only the corporate brand, but on the part of the locations. So by using technology platforms, me and Eds can now see all of their review sites in one central platform. They're immediately alerted of any new ratings or comments as they're happening. And then they can track and respond to comments and conversations and reviews all in one platform in real time. So as things come in, as you can see from the visual here, they're aware of, what was said, who said it, what was the review, was it a bad or a positive review, what site it appeared on. And then they can, whoever's managing the portal can manage it themselves, or they can actually assign that to different people within the organization to respond to that situation. So again, you can see pretty quickly how a technology can really help make that a lot more effective and efficient process. And by doing so, me and Ed was able to respond, again, more efficiently and effective to their consumers. And the benefit has been they've even been able to turn some of their less than positive reviews into positive testimonials, or turning those negative reviews into positive reviews based on just the way they were able to handle a bad situation. And so it really showcases, the benefit of not, sometimes you're going to get a negative review. It's going to happen. We know we can't please everybody, but the way you handle that situation can make or break your local business in today's day and age. And again, the best case scenario is that person is so happy with how you handled their experience that they again go back and change that review. So that was really all of the content I prepared today. For those on the phone that are unsure if they have any unclaimed pages, if they have reviews that are going unattended, we've created a quick little tool that you can use to check out your brand. You just have to type in healthcheck.meetsoci.com into your browser. And what you do is you input your brand name and your email address, and a tool will go through, it'll look at your first 100 local pages it finds, and gives you it'll email you a summary report of what it found. And from there, you can take that to your team. You can figure out if there's, some work that needs to be done there. And of course, we're always here to help if you have any questions. So in summary, there's really no one-size-fits-all solution in managing your mobile brand reputation. As we saw from the research, there are a number of different sites that consumers are turning to. So there's no one silver bullet in terms of the site that you need to be managing. You really have to be managing all of those top review sites. And there's no one single technology solution either. A lot of brands have different needs. And there's a lot of great technology solutions in the marketplace. So make sure that you are doing your proper vetting when you're looking for a solution. The proper management of your mobile brand reputation actually comes down to three very important areas that we covered today in the presentation. Your searchability, as we mentioned, when it comes to how are consumers searching, so being aware of how sophisticated consumers are becoming in their search queries and the importance of keywords. And visibility, the impact of having a good amount and recent reviews really impacts how you rank in local search results. And in fact, on some properties is becoming the #1 ranking factor. And finally, responsibility. And the way that I have this spelled out here actually has two meanings, right? Responsibility in that you're taking responsibility for whatever experience your consumer has had, and making sure they know you're aware and you're on the issue. And responsibility in meaning that you're set up to be able to efficiently and effectively respond to these issues as they occurred at the speed of mobile. And finally, what I'll leave you with is proactive management trumps crisis management. So the sooner you can get to these things and you're on top of them, the better for everyone. So I thank you all for being great attendees and participating in the polls. I think we have just a few minutes for a few questions, which hopefully we can get to.
Yes, thank you, Monica, so much for all of this information. And we do have a few questions that came in. If we don't have a chance to get to them all, we will follow up via email. So I'll turn it over to Mark to facilitate.
Our first question is, Monica, we're in a restaurant congested area. Is there a way to show up higher on the near me searches, even if we're not the closest restaurant in proximity?
Yes, so there is. And I think a lot of the different sites that we covered today offers paid options. And for those restaurants that are in a very congested area, or if you're just starting to build up your profile, so you don't have a lot of ratings and reviews, you don't have a lot of good content on your pages yet, you will suffer from ranking. The good news is a lot of them, even Google My Business offers a paid listing option where you can pay to be featured higher on that listing for a period of time. Obviously, you take advantage of that as long as you need it. That will allow you to come up in search results. As we saw on the Google My Business page search listings, those paid ads look very similar to the organic listings. In fact, a lot of consumers don't know the difference. So it's a really effective option as you're growing your visibility.
Thank you, Monica. Next question. How should irrelevant reviews be addressed? Should we report to have them removed?
So we at Sochi would not recommend you have reviews removed. What could actually happen is a backlash by a consumer if it is a valid review. And sometimes it's really hard to determine whether or not it is or not. So there are a lot of these properties have ways where if you think you're being spammed, or if you feel like a competitor might be doing something unethical, there are ways to flag those reviews so that they can go under investigation. What we typically would recommend you do is, again, you show a lot of these review sites, they actually visibly show when the business responds, and you can see what the business says. And so what we would recommend is you respond to every review or a comment that mentions your brand. And, regardless of if it seems funny or not, you really give that person a way to take that conversation offline and hopefully address the specifics of that issue in another way. And that's going to do a couple of things. If you are being trolled or it's spam, if a consumer comes across it and they also think it looks weird, but they see that you've responded to it, they're going to feel good that you're on top of your customers, you care about your customer experience, etc. Again, if you feel like it is some sort of spam, do flag it. Use the process that the different properties have available. I've seen, some are really valid, and you should have them investigated if you really feel like you're being targeted. But regardless, you should always respond and give that person a quick way to contact you and take that issue offline.
Thanks. Next question is, what is a good strategy to generate more ratings and reviews for a restaurant?
Sure. So there's a number of different ways you can do that. I've noticed, I've seen a lot of different technology applications at the point of sale where, you're paying and they're going to send you that receipt electronically, and they have a really quick way for you to leave a star rating. Again, there's different technologies that can allow you to do that at the POS system. Another great way, as you've seen in restaurants, I've seen restaurants actually do some advertising within the restaurant where they will have a little, advertisement, whether it's on your placemat or on the window, where they talk about either their business is a top rated site and they'll promote where they're rated, or they'll use those materials to say, our business thrives on reviews. Please tell us about your experience. And then, gives them a couple of different ways to do that. I think, again, I think that's a really ethical way to do that. I will caution you, some sites are opposed to mass solicitation for reviews. But again, if you're doing it in a way where you're just really bringing to your customers' attention the importance of reviews to your business, so you're giving them a few options on where they can leave feedback, I think that's a very ethical way to do it. And it's better than them going out and finding their own site. So that's what I would recommend.
Great, thank you. Now, this is the last question. And as we said, we'll try to follow up on the remaining questions. Last question is, how important is it to respond to people that just leave a star rating, especially 4 or 5 stars?
So it is best practice to leave a response to every review that you receive, even if it's just a star rating. And a lot of times, businesses will think, well, it was a good rating, I'm not going to respond. What we've seen in research, though, is consumers they're thrilled when you respond back. And they took the time to leave you a positive review. They're going to be equally happy when you take the time to say thank you back. So again, if you're time strapped and resource constrained, obviously prioritize the bad experiences. You're going to have them. Every restaurant does. I will mention, if you are a restaurant that has a lot of reviews and you only have 5-star reviews, consumers will not, they kind of sniff through that, and they actually think it's not legitimate. So having, a 3.5 to 4-star ratings is typical. Be equipped to respond quickly to those negative experiences first, but it is good practice to respond to every review.
Great. Thank you again, Monica, for your time today, and thank you all for participating in this webinar. If you do have any other questions, please don't hesitate to submit those to programming@restaurant.org, and we will follow up, as we said, via email with responses. And again, after the webinar, we will send an evaluation if you wouldn't mind providing your feedback. But we thank you all again, and thank you, Monica. This was a great webinar. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.